25 minutes to 4 o'clock. A very good afternoon to you. If you've just joined us, you're watching ENCA on DSTV Channel 43. This is Today. I'm Dan Moyana. It is Human Rights Day, the 21st of March. That's the big story, of course, that we're tracking for you. But there are others as well, like this one. The former deputy chairperson of the DNA board, Vanessa Lynch, is sounding the call for the DNA bill to be passed as soon as possible. She says more than 100,000 prisoners have been released from jail since 2017 without having their DNA recorded. The bill will result in suspects arrested and charged with Schedule 8 offences having a DNA sample taken and logged in the National DNA Forensics Database. Schedule 8 offences include rape, murder, robbery and culpable homicide. Ms. Vanessa Lynch joining us now this hour. Ms. Lynch, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. First up, I just want to get one thing out of the way. I said you've said more than 100,000 prisoners have been released since 2017. Correctional Services Departments, I've seen reports, they've disputed that number. They say they could not have had so many prisoners in 2017 to have been released since then. Numbers-wise, let's just get that out of the way. How many prisoners, in your view, could have had DNA samples taken if this bill was lawful or was already enacted earlier?
Good afternoon. Yes, it's interesting that the spokesperson for the Correctional Services disputed that, because actually it was his minister in June 2021 which provided the Portfolio Committee for Police in Parliament the number of 96,875 prisoners who had been released without having their DNA sample since January 2016. So it was on the basis of that number when in Parliament last week that it was submitted that over 100,000.
Thanks for clarifying.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, thanks. We're not gonna get into the numbers game. I was just fascinated that there's a bit of a difference of opinion there. But no matter what it is, there's thousands of prisoners who've come out. And in your view, this delay in this bill is affecting a very important part of fighting crime in this country. So what was your key message to Parliament the other day?
The key message was, first of all, there was overwhelming support for this bill, which is despite, the delay in coming before the Portfolio Committee. The key message was that we need to pass this bill for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons. There were a number of submissions which contended that the DNA backlog should first of all be reduced before passing the bill, whereas my contention was that they need to happen in parallel. We can do it in such a way that parolees can be sampled first, but we can't ignore this population. It's one of the most important populations to have on the DNA database. We can link a number of these offenders to cold cases. We've seen this in the past with a number of serial rapists who've been connected to over 30 rapes. And it's really not an option to be able to take it from an arrestee constitutionally, but not a convicted offender. So the key message is let's pass the bill, get on with it. We can do it in such a way that there's not a burden on the laboratory. Reference samples are very simple. They don't require much manual input. It's an automated analysis. And as I said, it's, in terms of the arsenal of crime fighting tools, we need this in our country against serial offenders, which we know are at play.
So from your perspective, it's both and. It's not either or. You could do both. While you're busy with the current backlog, you could be compiling this database and getting those samples for those type of prisoners who would qualify or that are regarded as prisoners who are dangerous, who've committed Schedule 8 offences. So now, the delay in this has been what exactly? What's your sense you are getting when you engage with Parliament? You were making your own submission. Why is it taking so long? Because it's sitting with the Portfolio Committee currently. That's where it's being discussed.
Yes, it wasn't the Portfolio Committee's delay. It was actually the Minister of Police who had delayed it because he had said that he wanted a population database of all citizens of South Africa. So for some unknown reason, he was delaying it on the basis of that, which we know is first of all, it's not constitutional. And secondly, we don't have the capacity, apparently, to, sample the criminal offender population. So how he expects the population of the entire South African, of our population, I don't really understand. But be that as it may, we are where we are, and we actually, in the first 2 years of the DNA Act, they were able to take convicted offenders' samples, and then that expired. So all this amendment bill was doing was basically just to continue with that sampling program. Why it took 4 years to do that is anybody's guess. So we have to just be positive that it's... Well, the portfolio... Well, let's hope that the submissions will not deter the portfolio committee. They seem to support it, and they will take it under consideration. And they have set aside to the 1st of April to put it before the National Assembly. And then hopefully we will start seeing convicted offenders' samples being taken. So this is a really positive step, and we should all support it. And let's watch the space for that next event.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the importance of DNA, we see it helps in the conviction, exactly, and people can be criminals who've committed these serious offences like rape, like murder and robbery and stuff like that, violent crimes. They can be easily traced and tracked, and then you can find justice. Yeah. Are you there?
Yes, sorry, I lost you for a moment.
Okay, apologies. I was saying, yeah, the importance of this is to help improve the conviction rate of people of criminals who've committed rape, murder, and robbery and serious crimes like that. So, aren't you concerned that because the government is saying we have a backlog, let us deal with the backlog first, that this once the bill gets passed through, it won't be implemented fully or properly, because the focus with the people who are doing the work might be on the backlog. Aren't you concerned?
Not really, because the crime scene samples, which require more manual input, those are the samples which are creating the backlog more than the reference samples. The reference samples, as I say, it's an automated process. They have a huge capacity between the two laboratories. They're also able to enter into public-private partnerships with university laboratories as well as other laboratories, which they've already started looking at. And you can't not pass a good law for the wrong reasons. And it's very important to understand that. Imagine if we waited for the backlog to get to zero. Well, we might be here for another 10 years. In the meantime, we can't continue to allow convicted offenders to be released without having their DNA sample taken, because what we will be doing is allowing them to commit further rapes, and then we will have even more cases to analyze. So we have to look at this logically. This bill needs to be passed, and we need to be able to look at the DNA backlog with a holistic approach, which the Forensic Science Laboratory are doing. They have been given funding, the maintenance contracts have been awarded, and they are reducing the backlog. All of these things need to happen simultaneously in order to have an effective national forensic DNA database.
So this national forensic DNA database of the prisoners will be kept separate from everything else and will be tapped into as and when necessary? How does it work?
No. Not at all. We have a forensic DNA database. We have a number of indices, one of which is actually the convicted offender database index, but we haven't been populating it in the last 4 years. So the moment that an arrestee or a convicted offender are entered onto that DNA database, their profile, it's automatically searched against unknown crime scene profiles. And what you often find is that you find, for instance, in some cases, an offender who's linked to up to 30, we've even seen recently 60 rapes as a result of the search mechanism on the database. So we have an existing database. We just need to populate it with more reference samples to see if they match an unknown crime scene sample.
Okay, now the DNA bill should be in Parliament next month in April. We'll have to track and see what's going to happen there. It's very important that this bill is amended, as you've said, and you've told Parliament. Thank you very much, Ms. Vanessa Lynch from DNA for Africa. She's also formerly a deputy chairperson of the DNA board in the country.